Greetings and salutations. Ben here. Welcome to the Sunday Night Hanging, well, right here on Sundays. If you're new, please subscribe. And if you're returning, of course, welcome back. And speaking of welcome and back, we have my good friend Charles hanging out, and we're just gonna talk tonight, folks. Just hang out, catch up with Charles. I believe that's what I titled it. Yeah, catching up with Charles Greene. There it is. Title's right above the window, Ben, if you care to read it. Perfect. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's good to see all you guys. It's good to see everybody. Oh, man. What's today, Sunday?
Sunday.
Yeah, I tell you, I worked all day.
Oh, man, already into June.
It's crazy rain last night. A lot of flooding everywhere. It's a little weird, actually. But, yeah, man, it's good to see you guys. Excited to be here. Excited.
We've already got quite the crowd in here. We've got Ferd Burfel, Lawrence Cash from Alaska. My knees hurt. Scott Brockway. Hey. Devin's here. Casey Lee's tuning in from Central Kentucky. Awesome, Casey. We got JP Page 2, Tim Thomas, Jim Ray Hawkins, Cushman NYC. Of course, Symmetry's in here. Hip Metalworks, Dennis Ellis, Jeff K.
Jeff.
Who else we got here? Man? Music Therapy Laz.
It's good to see you, Laz.
Guitar Man 45.
Right on, bro.
Awesome. Paul McNary and the Cats.
Hey, Paul. Right on, bro.
Paul P. Man Howland. All the Pauls. Perfect.
Hey, Paul.
Dave Chase tuning in from New Hampshire.
Oh, Dave. Right on, man.
He's I think he's more north than I am. That makes sense. Josh Tamberg's here.
How is that possible? Being more north than you are. I guess he could be.
Curls right. Up and around.
You're right. My bad, bro. My bad.
It's all good. Yeah, I say I'm from the South too. Just Southern Canada. It's all about your perspective. Randy Crooks is here.
Hey, it's good to see you, bro.
AQ Music, Presley, California Customs.
Right on, guys. Right on.
I assume Charles 75N snuck in here. I assume. I haven't seen it. I want Ataraxia, I think. It's not his actual name. I can't remember his actual name. Great to see you live. We got Richard Nagamitsu in here.
Hey, Richard.
Cool Tunes Made Easy. There's Charles 75N. And Bill Nollemark.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah, Charles 75N and Presley, California Customs had a great show on earlier today. Talking about what made you get into guitar? Like, what was the artist that caused you to pick up your guitar? And I thought that was a great concept.
I got to catch the replay on it. I got to catch it. Charles, man, I just saw the last video he just posted up of the telly.
Right.
My goodness. I've asked him to do, he's going to graciously agree to do a guitar for me. He's going to do me a rap. And I can't wait to show it off for this community. His work is really, really, really tight.
Yeah, I like how he's holding up. He goes, well, at the finish, it's terrible. I'm like, no, it's not.
That's what I like about him the most. He's critical of his own work to just a flawlessness. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. Really cool. And it'll be just to talk about it, I'm going to have him take a couple of rock T-shirts of my favorite band. He's going to wrap a Strat. That's what he's going to do, but it'll be a single humbucker Strat body, single humbucker routed for a Floyd. Yeah. So that's it. I've already ordered stuff and everything, so it's a little bit down the road, but it's okay. It's a lot of fun. It's what we like to do around here. So,
Danon, that's named Danon. If I'm saying that correctly.
Danon. Cool.
Taylor 315, thanks for the super chat. It says, look forward to the show, Ben. Love it when Charles is on.
Well, thank you, Taylor.
Yes, we were gossiping a bit backstage. What's up, Absolute Mayhem? I was hanging out with him yesterday. Blackjack Guitars here.
Blackjack.
Awesome. That the last time Charles was on, Nikki Six in particular was out there on the socials slagging on our friend Mick Marr, saying, the guy doesn't play. He's been, ghosting it. I don't know what's going on. Hey, there's Billy Baloney. I was hanging out with Billy yesterday too.
Good to see you, Billy. Right on.
And that's right, Richard. This is my favorite skate shop in Charlotte. Just saying.
Nice shirt, brother. Very cool. Very cool.
What's up, John? ZD351? Yeah, so we had seen this stuff, and then recently, I assume it was somewhat trolling and in jest, but knowing how he works as a producer, Bob Rock put out, I don't know if Nikki Sixx played on the first 4 Motley Crue albums, which I thought was interesting because those are pre-him touching. That's kind of the original 4 before they went fully on with the Bob Rock Dr. Feelgood. So I went, ooh, but as I had said to Charles, Bob Rock basically plays on every album he produces in some way, shape, or form. And it could even be something as simple as you send the guys home, you're listening on playback, you go, ooh, you missed this one little turnaround in the bridge. I'll just punch myself in, boom, boom, boom. Would take care of it.
So they brought him back for Dr. Feelgood.
Did he do Girls, Girls, Girls?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, he did Shout at the Devil, didn't he?
Really? I don't think so.
I believe so. No. I'm so sorry. I just tripped myself up, and I apologize to you guys.
Thank you, Charles. Fabric topping promotion fee. Love it.
No, love it, bro. They had brought him back into their world to do Dr. Feelgood. And what he did was he would literally strap a guitar on and get right there with the band in the studio and say, no, try it like this, try it like that. He's notoriously known for hands-on music tweaking. He has a really known reputation for it. And the guys had gotten tired of a couple of people before them. They voice it in several interviews, and he was a breath of fresh air for them at the time. And
let's be honest, Bob Rock, like I was saying to Charles off air, he had only been producing albums for few years at that point.
That's right.
Working previously as an engineer, as most do. Apparently, you become an engineer, then you produce after engineering.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, by the time you got back involved with them, they were in their cleanup stage for Dr. Feelgood. That album, that's their sober album, essentially. Because the 4 to 5 years before that, basically from the start of Shout at the Devil, just prior to Shout, all through Theater of Pain, that's when they really got into a lot of their trouble. That's when a lot of their issues came up. The only solid rock through all of that turmoil was Mick Mars. Now he had some stuff going on. He went through a divorce. He had some issues come up. Things like we all deal with. But the wild side of Motley Crue wasn't Mick Mars.
No, it was only a 3-pronged horse on that one.
Yeah. And so, that full decade of time, that decade, he's a decade older than these guys are. He really is. And there's a difference there. But that's always given those boys stability. It's always made them more stable, especially in the early days. I can remember at the end of, I remember when Shout at the Devil came out, and the initial album cover, which the record label on the second production changed and put the 4 of their picture on there instead of that pentagram on the Black Face album, dark gray with a black pentagram on it. When I initially had heard those guys and seen that change in them, I wasn't really digging it. I didn't dig the whole Down with the Devil thing. And then there was a misunderstanding that was put out there because the media, it wasn't like we had it here. You either heard it on the radio or you happened to have read it in a magazine. And if it wasn't true, then you were spreading bad info. So the initial thing about it is they were, and it's ironic because they were labeled worse. The media attacked them far worse. The religious right went after them far worse than even WASP. And I find that, and even more than Anthrax, which I find just kind of ridiculous, to be honest.
I always thought it was funny when they went after Anthrax. I'm like, you don't like comic book reading, fun-loving guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you go after Slayer, who's on the same bill? Slayer, I get, okay, Rain and Blood, as opposed to, I'm the Man. Come on.
Going back to what you were saying, Bob Roth's influence on their music is incredible. It really is. I think that he did change the footprint. Listening, I had the opportunity to catch him at this last festival. The sound was obviously enhanced, but it was enhanced for everybody, not just Motley Crue. It was obvious that there was something going on there, but it was a very enjoyable show. And I didn't see, I've seen the snippets and clips of either Tommy stopping drumming and the drums continuing, or Nicky not hitting the bass and adjusting his earpiece and then going back to hitting it. You can hear the bass,
right?
You can hear a definite bass tone,
right?
Background. It's obvious. It's just
Stop,
obvious. Ryan. So, are they playing to a backing track, or is their playing being enhanced by a backing track?
Right.
See what I mean? Because there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard Wasp just a few weeks ago, it was a small club now, Fillmore in Charlotte, but they were playing to a backing track, and you could hear it come in certain parts, and you could hear it not there, but it was blended very well, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And what it gave us was the ability to hear that experience more like it was back in the day. I mean, it was it was obvious that was the reason that they were doing it, was to make it sound better. Now, I thoroughly know from standing in front of them and watching them playing that if they didn't have the backing track, it still would have been a show, and it would have been okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, Blackie, I'm hard to say it, but I've been doing shows now sitting in a chair. I don't know if you guys are aware of that or not. It's out there on YouTube. I'm not really sure why. I'm not really sure why. But I wish Blackie good health. There's a Blackie Crew connection with Nicky. In the late 70s, like 77, 78. That's kind of rumored that's where Nicky got the whole pentagram thing from a band he was briefly in with Blackie. It was for a minute. I think it was called Sister, I think was the name of it. 77, 78. Very brief. I've heard stories lately. I just, in whatever media or whatever, talking about, how they were really close and great friends. I saw them together maybe this many times, maybe 3 times, 2 times. In the early 80s. Now, they were both doing their thing, and Wasp is doing their thing, and so I never sensed a great friendship between the two of them, and it's coming up now, and it interests me. It really does. I'm looking at it. I'm like, wow, I never really caught that. I never really did. But yeah, Ben, right back to your initial observation, and I got to tell you, I don't know what to say other than Mick Mars impresses the hell out of me.
Yep.
He really does. His cognitive ability, I've watched very recent interviews. He can pull it back from the past. He can pull it to the future. Everything he says is articulate and correct.
Yeah, I'm seeing the comments in the chat too, mentioning like the enhancements and stuff and shows. And I think part of it is bands want to put on such a good show because they're charging so much for a ticket. It's like, because we're all still, those still poor kids at heart, we're like, oh, I can't believe we're charging that. Well, we got to give them everything we can, and that's why a lot of these shows are 2-3 hours too.
Yeah.
For that reason, because they want to give it, but it's literally, you're playing along to a backing track that the front of house can mix in or out at any given time, depending on how you're doing on a particular night, is the way I kind of understand it. And you're always playing just above, but that track is always there at 80-90% of volume, and that goes.
I remember being at
I hear it. Apparently a lot of bands are doing it.
I remember being at a show a decade ago, more than a decade ago, with my kids, and I think we were seeing Green Day. By the way, they kick ass live. Great band. We're going to see him again. And I could see behind the stage, there was another guitar player. He was behind the stage. And he was playing, he was doing like lead work and stuff. And they didn't have him out in front. So I noticed it immediately because there was another guitar playing. And it wasn't Billy Joe. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't. It was obvious. And then about 3 months later, I noticed there was a video out and they actually had brought him out and they tucked him back by the stack. That's how it should be. If you've got somebody back there, a human who's doing it, and unless it's, a one-shot thing, an organ, or they're doing this, or maybe playing whatever for a song or two, I understand that. But if there's somebody back there who's actually playing with the band, get him out and put him somewhere, stick him on the porch. Right.
I'm looking at you, Iron Maiden, where you've had Steve Harris's bass tech playing keyboards for 20 plus years with the band.
What a great.
There's a lot of keyboards in Iron Maiden music.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
And it's like there's a lot of keys in Ozzy music.
There's tons of it. Absolutely.
Come on, Ozzy. You've always had a 5-piece band. You always did the photos as a 4-piece because he's like, we're cool. We don't have a keyboard player. Whatever. You toured with a keyboard player every show. It was always a 5-piece.
Who was that band? Was it Don Airey, who was with Ozzy, with Randy Rhoads? He made Randy sound better than Randy even was by himself. The two of them together. He did it for Richie Blackmore and Rainbow. The list is huge. Give me a good keyboard player, bro. How cool is that?
What's up, iRock?
What's going on, bro?
What's
going on, man? Yeah, when the Crue came out with Too Fast for Love, there's like 4 versions of that album that have been produced. And they had that album was like they had already rocked those songs. They were club tested. They were venue tested beyond the club. They knew them quite literally like the back of their hand, in their sleep, tight. But there was a bunch of other songs that they had that they were working on. I mean, a bunch of them. Nicky had songs, he's a lyricist. I've always, my opinion of Nicky Sixx is that he is a lyricist. He is a wonderful, wonderful songwriter who needed a bass guitar to express himself. Right. That's kind of my take on Nicky Sixx. And his brilliance is his ability to write songs. His lyrics are flipping fantastic. And for instance, the age of 15, he's moved from Iowa from I think it was his grandmother and his grandfather. He moves to Seattle, Washington, into a project apartments. And right in the middle of those projects is a playground. And this playground, it was like a community playground for those particular apartments. And in the center of that thing was a little merry-go-round. All right. And so he's sitting there, and there's this guy he knew, one of his neighbors, and he was this young guy who had a wife and like 4 kids, and he was young, and he was having, he knew him well enough to know that the guy was going through financial issues and this and that, but he literally watched this guy have a nervous breakdown sitting on this merry-go-round. And so that's what the song Merry-Go-Round is all about. It's not about some chick named Mary. Okay. He's deep.
Quentin James?
He's deep.
Legend.
And deep like Quentin James. What's going on, bro? It's good to see you, man. And so they come out of that album. Everything's cool, but they had a bunch of songs that they pulled. When Shot at the Devil came out, not only was I very depressed, I really was at the fact that they went to the whole dark side. I got the feeling they were trying to kind of keep up with Wasp a little bit, and that whole, it was a big deal. Wasp was.
I was gonna say by that time you had the whole Wasp, Dio, thing, it was a thing. Yeah. It was a thing.
And so they were. I didn't really dig it, but the music was good. The songs were good. Looks That Kill was huge. Too Young to Fall in Love was incredibly great song. They had MTV Play. They had videos. They were on top of the world. Okay. They also went from, they really started screwing up because they had, for the first time, they had wealth.
Exactly.
They
had wealth.
and they really they kind of went off the deep end a little bit. It's well documented. And so by the time Shout at the Devil was over, it's you talk about Shout at the Devil. Too Fast for Love sold like 20,000 copies in Los Angeles and Phoenix. That was kind of like the pre-release demographic of the success of that album in the early days. It was a big deal. If you're at a club level like they were, that's very respectful. Okay. But Shout at the Devil sold 200,000 copies in the first 2 weeks. And their lives just took off. I mean, they, you know, but Gene Simmons invites them. And he regrets it. He brings them onto the Creatures of the Night tour. And they lasted for 5 shows. I think Gene's press release on it was they were asked to leave for misconduct. I think it's the word he used, misconduct. And
this is coming from a guy that used to be in a band with Ace Frehley and Peter Criss.
This is freaking Gene Simmons, yeah.
Just saying.
Misbehavior. Poor conduct and misbehavior. That's what it was. And so I find that, that right there in my memory is the beginning of the foundation for the public knowledge of their exploits.
Right. Which when I hear that from Gene, that tells me showing up late for gigs, which is a big, like you have one job as an opening act. Don't be late. That's it. You can do whatever else you want, but just don't be late going on stage. That's it. One rule.
So they're coming out of this massive, huge album. They've got success. They've got money. They've got whatever they really want. And then they go into the studio and they kick out Theater of Pain.
Yep.
That album sucks. Okay. I hate that album. I can't stand
it's funny,
that.
That was the album for my age group, Charles, that everybody had that album. Everybody I knew had that album.
Shout at the Devil was I would say, for a lot of the people who really got into Motley Crue, that was really their first introduction. And then they fell back and said, they got
anybody that I knew that had an older sibling, they got introduced earlier. But for if you were the older sibling and you were my age, for instance, without any, because it was, the video for Smoking in the Boys' Room was everywhere, right?
Well, and that wouldn't even, okay. So Theater of Pain, Smoking in the Boys' Room was Vince Neil's idea at the last minute to do a cover song and put it on the album. It wouldn't even be there.
Let's pull a Van Halen, except they didn't pull a Van Halen, because when Van Halen did a cover, they reinvented the song.
Yes.
They just didn't. Yes. They just did a heavier version of it. That's all they did.
Yes. But Home Sweet Home was the song on the album. That's the song. That's their power ballad. That's the first power ballad Motley Crue ever did. Very successful.
One of the first power ballads.
Well,
in many ways.
When they were
Ozzy did some power ballads as well. That was a carryover from Black Sabbath, because Black Sabbath would do some slower stuff, but Home Sweet Home with the video and the theatrics, that set going forward all the Bon Jovis of the world. And
when did Faithfully come out? What year did Faithfully come out? I can't remember off the top of my head. Wasn't that the first bona fide?
I was going to say, I want to say that maybe 81.
I'm not sure. I used to know who was the first power ballad. So I lost my place, Ben. I'm so sorry.
So Theater of Pain sucked.
Yeah, so
that was the album that gave them excess, right? Well, not just success, but excess.
I think Nicky puts it like this. He puts it like this. We only had a little bit of money, so we only could do a little bit on Too Fast for Love. For Shout at the Devil, we could do a lot because we had a lot at that time. But by the time Theater of Pain came up, our bedrooms were full and we could do whatever we wanted. And that was, he says that's the beginning of the problem. No, the problems were happening before that. They quite literally were, but they just had the money to party harder. That's how it was. And
I don't agree with that absolute mayhem. We're not saying the Carpenters invented power ballads, so that's not an option. And Charles 75N says Faithfully was 1983. Perfect.
Well, then shoot. I don't know the answer. I used to know. For some reason, I was thinking Bon Jovi, and I thought, no. So one of it was either Bon Jovi or Journey, I believe. And I remember it was either Neil Sean and Steve Perry who were having conversation about it. And Neil didn't want to do it. Steve was saying, we got to do this song. It's going to be great. And Neil was just fighting the whole way until they played it live for the first time. And all of a sudden Neil was on. Yeah, it was Journey, I do believe. I think it was Faithfully. I could be wrong. Anyway, back to this whole Theater of Pain business. Horrible album. I couldn't stand it. It's really I love the graphics on the album. I love the concept of it. I love Home Sweet Home. I love it when they play it live.
They brought the pastels out on tour and the more feminization of the Sunset Strip by the looks of things.
Excellent. Right? But
Vince wore a lot of pink on that tour. I'm just saying, Vince wore a lot of pink.
Well, it's quite literally 1985 was the year that Motley Crue really should have just faded away. Certainly one of them should have passed away. I mean, their lifestyle at that time was utterly ridiculous. Nikki OD'd. Shit. Vince is, he had the manslaughter charge with Drazzle, and there was another car that was involved in that accident. That was major. That should have stopped them. It should have stopped them. It would have stopped most bands, I believe, if they if they weren't who they were and they didn't have the backing of, the backing they had.
There we go. I'll agree with Charles 75N. The first true power ballad was Styx, Lady, 1973. Yes, because Lady is a power ballad.
I can't even argue with that, brother. Yeah. Straight up. Thank you, Charles. He rocks. So that's going on. Mick is still a rock in the band. He's still going through personal stuff because he's a rich rock star, but his behavior is still stellar, and he is quite literally the rock, and they're all on his freaking shoulders. Yep. And by the way, they tried to throw him out of that damn band and on Shout at the Devil. After all that success of Shout at the Devil, they're in a tour bus. They were talking, I think Bob Daisley, I've heard Bob Daisley report on this. It's documented. They were trying to get rid of him and get like an Yngwie Malmsteen or Yngwie himself. Can you imagine what he would have done to Motley Crue?
Which really makes sense because I'm just thinking okay, Too Fast for Love and Shout at the Devil, they're basically dressing like Judas Priest, bondage wear, right? Just lots of leather, all leather, black leather. Yep. Then all of a sudden,
which is not who they were, Ben. That's really not who they were,
And then Theater Pain Tour, they're trying to dress like a combination of Van Halen / Twisted Sister, because it was that whole post Road Warrior meets Olivia Newton-John with the pastel colors and animal prints, and
yes.
Vince is trying to dress like David Lee Roth, and you can tell they've always wanted to be Van Halen, which I get because that was the bar for the previous generation. Was this is how you become a successful LA rock band? And then with Girls, they're like, oh, we're not glam, because the term glam had come out, or we're not glam. So then they went back to being cosplay bikers.
Yes. Well, those guys are all about 4 things. They love going to strip bars, quite literally. They love motorcycles. That Harley thing was a legitimate deal. And they're, with the exception of Mick, I don't really think Mick was always quite as into it as the 3 others were, but they're straight up bikers. They're straight up legit. And,
which I get, because why not get, you live in California where riding season's 12 months of the year, you get some money. Yeah. Who didn't want a motorcycle growing up?
At the time they were doing it, they were straight up cool. And they liked to party, and they liked to play rock. That was their thing. And that was really their initial origins. And for them to try to be anything other than that was kind of phony to me as a fan. That's my take on it. But by the time Girls came around, they'd clean their ass up. Okay, that's the most straight Motley Crue rendition of that band you will ever see or hear of. You can't see them anymore, but that was it. And they corralled those guys up. They drug them up to Vancouver. They were all still had this was 1987, 687. This has been like 87. And yes, 87. And they dragged the whole band up to Vancouver. They stick them in hotels and apartments. And they put them in a studio, and those guys stay in the studio for 8 to 12 hours a day. It's raining all the time up in Vancouver while they were there. The stories of that are wonderful.
Well, that's on point. It rains in Vancouver like all the time.
You can't really get out. And so these guys were literally just had to stay in the studio. And I've heard Tommy talk about it. But the best story is from Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. He was in Vancouver at the same studio. They were recording Pump at that time. And his document, his account of Motley Crue, especially Tommy and Nikki at that time, is priceless. Check it out. I love Girls.
Would it be because Steven Tyler saw a lot of himself in those two? You know, himself 10 years earlier as being one of the Toxic Twins in the 70s?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Exactly.
All I'm just saying is good thing Aerosmith had dried up by then, too, because you can't have Motley Crue and Aerosmith in the same town recording at the same time because there'd be no cocaine left for the rest of the whole city.
They were both at that time, Ben. They were both on the clean and sober wagon.
Yep.
At least as far as the way they were being portrayed to the media.
Oh yeah,
and to the masses.
Yeah, I remember those media tours. They're like, "Oh, it's so great." I'm like, "Whatever, dude. Like, this is, you know, the quote unquote come to Jesus moment that everybody in recovery has, where they say, "Oh, it's so great. It's so." I'm like, "Whatever, guys. Whatever."
Girls has great songs. It's got, obviously Girls, which is, it's the strip club anthem of the world. If that's any kind of an accolade, they have achieved it.
That album is definitely a snapshot in time, I will say.
Absolutely. Wild Side. Oh my goodness. What a song, right? Yeah. There's a couple other songs on that album that are just brilliant. Something for Nothing is a great song. It's obscure. 5 Years Dead is a really good song. It's obscure. Check it out on YouTube if you want. But that's really where they came out of it, and I had the opportunity to maybe clean up their image a bit because they really, at that time, that was time to do that. Yep. But Mick Mars was still there, and he was still a rock, and he was still in the band. And I just want to also add that by the time we got to this point in time, now that we're here at Girls, which was 1987, every one of these other guys has not only been out of the band, they've tried other solo projects and things of that nature. Some of them did jail time. Some of them did this and that. But Mick Mars was the only one, Ben, and you guys who quite literally has stood the test of time. And so it's been almost a decade. Okay. Well, so in 89, they come up with Dr. Feelgood. And that's still, that's their fifth album. They're still packing. They're one of the biggest bands in the world still. Kickstart My Heart. It was a really good song. Don't Go Away Mad. What a great LA Sunset Boulevard video. Oh my God.
And Vince plays guitar.
Yes. And it's Kickstart My Heart is a freaking punk song too, Ben. Agree?
Yep.
Right. But then after those albums, it was a new generation. We're coming into the 90s. Their ins and outs continue.
I remember just like going from Girls, which I remember I got as soon as it came out, huge album for me. And then the first time I heard Dr. Feelgood, I just went, "Ooh, it's polished like a lot." Yeah. And I tell you, I think I know I eventually bought the album, but I'm pretty sure I bought the album like a year after it came out.
Yeah.
Because I I'd heard it, through lots of friends having it and stuff, but I was just, you know what? I'm like, this is just too corporate. And it was by that point that I was no longer a Bob Rock fan because I had already heard, like, I dug Sonic Temple because Sonic Temple sounded better than the Cult's Electric album. Because the Electric album was produced quite a bit, but not in a good way. Kind of like Theater of Pain was. You can hear a lot of edits in Theater of Pain.
I still like Billy Duffy's guitar tone.
I do like the tone on Electric, but
I do.
The overall album, there's something about it. And then it was, literally Bob Rock. It was like everything big, gated reverb, big drums. I'm like, no, it's too slick. It sounded like it was auto-tuned and aligned to grid before that shit even existed. Because it was obvious they were playing to a click. It's obvious.
So the tone, the tour for Dr. Feelgood was really good. Yeah. And the live performance was as good as I'd ever heard it. Mm-hmm. That's where I really knew then that they were doing something to enhance. There are only 3 instruments up there with a voice. I mean, they were doing something. I don't know what. I have no idea, but they were. But
and Dr. Feelgood was the tour where they started bringing the background singers out all the time.
Nasty Habits. They enhanced the show. They put on one of the best rock shows I've ever seen. They evolved from the very beginning, certainly through, and they didn't stop. Mm-hmm. Tommy Lee used to do this thing, and it only worked I don't know if you guys remember, but he actually had this thing they used to do with the drum set, and it would disappear. You guys, for a brief moment in time, they used mirrors. There were mirrors, and most of the time, the mirrors were covered, and the uncovering of the mirrors was really important, and they wouldn't do it right, and it just never quite worked unless you got lucky and saw it actually work. It was a very low percentage of the time, so they only did it for a very brief period of time. But just seeing his exploits as a drummer and seeing him, and he's still playing drums, guys. That's another thing we should talk about. He's still playing the drums. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's up there not able to play to the songs that they're doing. He's playing drums. Yeah. So,
and I will say it flat out, Tommy Lee is hands down one of my favorite drummers of all time because he grooves like nobody grooves, in my opinion.
Got a groove, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the only person I had heard that could groove like him was Vinnie Paul. Vinnie Paul could groove. Where it's not often where a drummer could play just say completely by themselves, but I can hear the groove just in the drumming.
Excellent. Yeah.
And I should preface rock drummers. I should say rock drummers do it because there are, believe me, there's tons of funk groove drummer, like guys that can groove no problem, but rock drummers, not most of them, 4 on the floor, straight ahead.
Yeah.
But there's a swing to their playing that I don't know what. Boner Jam.
Hey, Boner, you rock, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Boner. I love you, man.
Co-host of the Under the Bus Network every Wednesday night, folks.
Love it. That's on Wednesdays.
Yes, Wednesdays at 9. But yeah, Tommy, hell of a drummer.
They all have their gift and the thing they bring to the band. I think that
what's up, Emery?
A lot of everything that we're hearing as far as, it's funny. I had this thought the other day, just like yesterday. I was sitting there thinking about it. I'm saying, okay, so Mick's out of the band now. We're waiting for a solo album. Wow, we did this 10 years ago. History is literally repeating itself. Mm-hmm. It's like they're doing a do-over. And so one or two things is going to happen. I actually, okay, devil's advocate, and it's just us talking, so nobody's going to hear it. Shh. John 5, who is incredible as a guitar player, he's a chameleon. I remember seeing him play with Madonna. Okay, mm-hmm. I didn't know who the hell John 5 was. I didn't know it was John 5. I don't have a damn clue. He was just playing guitar for Madonna for years. He's a chameleon. He can do whatever he needs to, and he's a free agent. He's a private contractor. He's John 5. Now he's filling shoes right now for Mick Mars, which we could argue all day long cannot be filled because it's no longer Motley Crue. Now, is it going to be a new band with a new dynamic and new songs and writing? Well, that's sort of the vibe. That's what we're hearing Nikki say. That's what he's saying. That's what their camp is putting out.
I just had an idea. Oofda. Okay. Because a few people have mentioned, like, they kind of sucked after Show of the Devil, except a lot of people are giving props to the Karabi album, which I do love. And I just thought, Charles, just as a band, like, you can't call them Motley Crue, but, okay, we'll keep Nikki, but Tommy Lee, sure, Nikki, John Karabi, and John 5. Yeah. Holy crap, that album would melt our faces off. Like, that would be so heavy and so intense and so groove. Yes. It would probably sound like Pantera.
And why those boys couldn't keep together long enough to as a group produce that music just blows my mind. I remember I don't remember what year it was. I was young, and Motley Crue was on TV. They're making a TV appearance on some like 5 p.m. Los Angeles show on TV, and they've got a different drummer. They've got a different lead singer. I can see Mick Mars, and I didn't even recognize Nikki. Okay, I didn't even recognize him. And I'm looking, I'm saying, wow, there's Mick Mars and Motley Crue, but I only recognize Mick Mars. What the hell's happened? I didn't know because I didn't know. So then I'm looking at this band, Motley Crue, is no longer Motley Crue, and I was so turned off. I was depressed and pissed. It was horrible. Whether the music was great or not, I didn't even care because I made an assumption that, wow, Motley Crue is no longer Motley Crue, and I was immediately turned off to it. But I watched because Mick was still playing guitar,
right?
And they were rocking. It was good music.
That was me with the Karabi album. I was like, you checked my 2 boxes. You got Mick, you got Tommy.
Yeah.
And I got it at the time because I was like, okay, you're not going to go grunge. You have to go Pantera. Pantera is only waving the flag of hard rock. Them and Metallica, that was it, by the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And I was like, they can't be Metallica, but they can be Pantera if they want to be.
The girl who played drums for a period of time, what was her name? Oh, God, I can't remember now. I'm so sorry. She was a really great drummer. Wasn't she the drummer for Hole? Wasn't she also the drummer in Hole? You guys, what's her name's band?
Courtney Love.
Yeah, in Courtney Love's band, her drummer, the girl who plays, in her band was that's the girl. That's the girl who was in. So they had a female drummer for a while. She rocked. She was awesome. But it wasn't Motley Crue,
Samantha Maloney. Hello, Jay Santiago, and thank you. Welcome.
Hey, guys. Good to see you guys right there. By the time, they produced a couple of live albums. They're good live albums. But back to what we were talking about Mick just a minute ago, I sort of expect if Motley Crue stays consistent to their dramatic past, okay? If they stay consistent, just because Mick was out of the band suddenly for a period of time and John 5 finally came in, somebody else finally came in and took Mick Mars' place. Well, maybe it was just Mick's time, and in 3 or 4 months or 5 months from now, Mick will be back in Motley Crue. That's actually very plausible if you look at their history. It's the natural progression of the band at this point. That's an observation.
Yeah, every other member is left at one time or another.
Sure. So, but I still want to hear Mick's solo album. We haven't heard it in anything like its entirety. There's been little fragments and stuff out there. He's got a whole slew, including John 5, of guests on the album. I think he should at least take advantage of that and
what's up, Brad?
Put it out and let us hear some of his solo work, because it's timeless to his fans, just timeless to him. but it's just weird. It's like they're repeating their end. They've had the end. They've already done the end, quite literally the end, live in Los Angeles. They were over. It was done. There's a little mini documentary on the last show they did together and how it was bittersweet, or was it bittersweet? And a couple of them really couldn't give a damn, and the others just wanted to get the hell out of there, and it was done. They were glad. And why they came back and chose to do it again, was it for the money? They don't necessarily need it. They're very wealthy. Was it an influence on it? Probably, I guess. I don't know. But we're not getting anything new out of this last resurgence from Motley Crue. We haven't really gotten any new music.
Other than Nicky making vague comments about going into the studio, but he doesn't say, is that a rehearsal studio, Charles, or is it a recording studio? Because they're both called studios. Interesting,
Ben. Yeah, I don't know. But we haven't heard any new music. And so if they're going to kick something out with John, John 5, it's the natural progression of that band right now to do that.
Well, see, I could see them releasing stuff with John 5 playing guitar, because all of a sudden now it's a 3-way cut for the majority of the money, right? Like, John 5 will not be a member of Motley Crue, much like the Rolling Stones,
But he comes with a huge price.
He would go for writing credits and such like that, but I bet he would be lucky to get 10%, and the other 3 guys are getting 30% apiece,
And part of the reason why they would need to cut Mick out as much as they possibly could, it makes sense when you look at it mathematically from a money-making standpoint. But as fans, we just want what we want, But it's not over. I'm calling it. I say Mick's back in Motley Crue by Christmas. Actually, by Halloween would be better, because that is my favorite time of the year. But
I want to see if they survive the summer touring.
Excellent.
I want to see if they survive the European tour. Let's see how that works first. Let's see them make it to Labor Day as a band before reforming, like Charles says. I want to see if they're still going to be a band by Labor Day.
I'm optimistic. I hope so.
I hope so too.
That's crazy. That's just crazy. And yeah, Richard Nagamitsu, I agree with you 100%. Those new Extreme tracks are really, really good. Really ridiculous. Good. Hey, did Ryan OU812 get in here yet?
I did see him. He popped in briefly. He did pop in briefly. I don't know.
I want to give him a quick shout out, and Trev Symmetry, R2, R3, and Mr. John Deschain. I was fortunate. I got home and you guys were on. I couldn't jump in. It was too late. But I turned you guys on and I was listening. And first of all, that EVH purple is absolutely gorgeous beyond gorgeous, bro. That guitar pops. But your guitar playing is outstanding. And that goes for all 4 of you guys. I love it when you guys play. The vibe you guys have is really, really good. But R2, R3 made an observation, Ryan, and I just got to throw it out there, bro. He said you were showering with that guitar, I believe is what I heard. That's taking it a little too far, brother. It's okay to love that Wolfgang, just don't love your Wolfgang, okay? It's a really nice guitar. Enjoy the hell out of it, brother. It really suits you. I heard you talking about the purple light in your studio and how it enhances the purple on the guitar. That's trickery, bro. That's not fair. And I'm calling you out on it. Anyway, I really enjoy that podcast, you guys. It's just a great group. And I love all of your guitar tones.
Great.
Every one of you guys. And they're all unique. Trev, bro, he's rocking that Marshall. And that tone is just crisp and clear. I love it. I absolutely love it. John was rocking that Sir.
I see a few people are asking if anyone's seen the Rick Beato Nuno Bettencourt interview, which if you haven't, I do highly recommend it. But hey,
we were talking about that earlier.
If you can't handle the swearing, I'm just saying, Nuno swears a lot. If you skip the F words, the 2-hour interview is about 45 minutes, is what I'm saying. But it's really good, including some talk about Eddie, which was interesting, and including Nuno playing some Van Halen covers, which was really cool.
You were mentioning that, Ben. He's always so humble when he shreds Van Halen. He could be cocky, but he's not. He's very humble, and it shows. He's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and it was interesting too, because I guess at the end of it, Rick Beato cuts in and he says how Nuno states he doesn't play guitar during interviews at all. He won't play guitar, but after the interview, he just started, handing him his own guitars that he has around the studio, and and of course, plug into a nice amp. Then all of a sudden, like he's playing a bunch of Van Halen on a Strat. It was all on a Strat with a single coil, and he kept, this can't be a single coil. This sounds too good to be a single coil. Well, and he's just rocking out all this Van Halen stuff on a bridge pickup of a Strat. Yeah.
Yeah,
and his take on Paul McCartney was great too. He has some great Paul McCartney stories in there.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome, man. Hey, Brad, it's good to see you, bro. Yeah. I haven't seen Brad in a minute. Very cool. Very cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Motley Crue, the drama continues. I love those guys. Yep. I just wish them I just wish them well. They're all getting old. You guys, Nicky is 3 years, almost 3.5 years older than me. You wouldn't know it by looking at him. Well, I think it's all the money he has that makes him look younger, truly. But
he can pay to look that young, right?
Yeah, well, he was born in 58. I was born in 61. Yeah. So he is almost a senior citizen, which is really,
and it's not like he hasn't put that body through its paces over the years.
Oh my God, man. So
I can pretty much guarantee you he's had some work done.
Hey, Vince has lost a lot of weight.
Vince
I saw some really pot. You know what I've noticed? I've noticed that the trend on the trash talk about him, even though it's still there, there's a lot of positive stuff about him, because in the last couple of 3 months, people have seen it. He's dropped a ton of weight. He's been working on his vocals. I saw some really halfway decent stuff, and he's really singing. Okay. So Vince is really singing here.
I'm glad he's working on his vocals, because let's be honest, you see some of those performances in years past, and it was just pathetic. Like, dare I say, David Lee Roth level of lack of, like David Roth just scats and talks, half the time now and does his shtick. Yes. But like Vince would at least try, but then it was just mumbling something, trying to hit the note and not quite succeeding at either.
I think he was losing his breath and just couldn't.
That a lot too. Yeah. Breathe. Which again, work on your cardio.
Yeah.
Take a page out of Mick Jagger's book. I'm just saying.
You think I need a wig or hair extensions, Richard? I don't know. I could rock them. I could do a Steel Panther thing, but sure. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, brother. Oh, there you go, Brad. Hey, embrace it, brother. It's all in your mind anyway.
Exactly.
That's how you feel.
Vince was singing every third word. Exactly, Michael Easton.
Yeah, and are you just holding the mic out for the fans to sing for him? There's a few songs on YouTube where he does it quite literally for half the song.
Yeah, it's like, no, I didn't come here to hear the crowd sing the song. I came to see Motley Crue.
Yeah. Hey, but anyway, with you guys in the chat and everything, the community is really cool. A little shout out to my buddy Tony, Brendan, and Ed. I love you guys over there on Show Me Your Pick and Halenville Live.
3-year anniversary of Show Me Your Pick last night. I didn't make it because I had way too much sun and fun in Toronto yesterday. Tony messaged me. He goes, "Here's the link. I hope you can join us." I'm like, dude, like I'm like, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. I can barely stand at this moment. So I'm like, the chances of me still being coherent at 9 p.m. I'll try, and I failed.
Great.
I think by 8:30 last night, I turned off the computer, and I was pretty much out not too long after that.
Yeah, very cool, brother. Very cool.
But yeah, and it's great to see the Show Me Your Pick crew and Halenville crew going strong.
Talking about all roads leading to Van Halen. So Motley Crue got one of their. I'll go back to the crew for just a moment, because this is a really kind of this is the straw that set the camel's back as far as their reputation as being unruly and hard to handle. Because there was a 4-year period where those guys were out of control.
Yep.
During they were able to get onto the Monsters of Rock, and with AC/DC and Van Halen. I mean, it was the break of their lifetime. The break of their lifetime, and Vince Neil quite literally bit Eddie Van Halen. He bit him, and he bit not Angus, but Malcolm Young. Yeah, and there was a big stink about it, and both of those bands, AC/DC and Van Halen, were kind of so angry about it that they wanted them kicked off the bill of the Monsters of Rock. This is documented. It's out there. You can look it up. And they were so big. They were so big at the time that they didn't kick them off the tour, but they had to conform to specific stipulations of not mingling with the other bands. They had to keep their distance. When they got to the arena for the show, they had to go straight to their trailers. And I even heard some other crazy shit that I'm not even sure is true, what they actually did to keep them isolated away for a period of time. So that's how crazy those guys were. When you hear about Motley Crue and getting the reputation, Ozzy had the craziest reputation for a period of time of being absolutely nuts. But Motley Crue went on tour with Ozzy and just picked up where Ozzy basically left off.
That was not exactly the best training ground for a young band.
Oh no, and they just embraced it. I mean, they fell right into it. And I'm not, when I say these things about Motley Crue, guys, they're quite literally in my top 2-3 bands. I love them as much as I do Van Halen, or they're my favorite. But they're just real guys, man, and they went through real shit, and it just happened to be very publicized, and it's rock and roll. It's the heart of the 1980s rock and roll. They were quite literally one of the most biggest bands on the planet Earth for a period of time. It's really cool. It's cool history,
See, Freakcake Tony joined us after we were talking about him. Nice to see you in the chat.
Hey, Tony, what's going on, man?
Let's give you a big shout out. Mark's gas station in the house. Richard Nagamitsu is asking if there's any shows you have tickets for coming up. He says we should hang.
Well, okay, so yes, I'm going to Weezer. I'm not sure the date yet. I'll get with you on it, Richard. Let me see, who else am I going to see? There's somebody else. It's with my kids. They're my kids' bands, but you love them. It was funny. I heard, but I think I'm also going to Papa Roach, and it's funny. It's a few months down the road, but I heard Boner Jams was on Under the Bus. Who says I don't watch Under the Bus Network? Boner was griping about Papa Roach a little bit. I feel you, brother, but I'm still going to go back and see him again. It's with the kids, and I had a wonderful time. Getting Away with Murder Live was really good. I like a few of their songs quite a bit. But then again, they're not my generation. I'm old. I'm not even supposed to listen to Papa Roach or Weezer, but I do because of my kids. Sure. Good music is good music. I don't care. Somebody else I'm going to see.
Richard says he has tickets to Social Distortion.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking of going to that, Richard. We're going to get together with this, Richard, because you're so local. We need to at least hook up with a show. And I think Social Distortion is coming. Where's the show at, Richard? Where are you going to see them at? If you don't mind.
Yeah, where is that happening?
Weezer and Foo Fighters would be an awesome show, Richard. Very cool.
That would be a good show.
Very cool. There's a couple of other bands too. And I'm so sorry, I'm not remembering off the top. It just figures. There's shows in the future. Also, I want to give just a quick shout out to Mean Street, Jay Turner's cover band. He's the bass player for Mean Street. Tony and I I got to go to Salisbury and see them. It was one of the best live shows I've seen in a very long time, in a bar. It was fantastically cool. And I just want to give them another shout out.
Apparently, Social Distortion's at the Fillmore on August 2nd.
Yes, thank you. We need to, I'll be at the show, Richard. I'll be at that show, August 2nd. I'll be at that show. I'll probably have my son-in-law with me, Logan, because he's a fan. But I love Social Distortion. They are quite literally, Richard, out of You're in My Past, bro. They've been around, man.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do that, Richard. If that's okay with you, I'll get Ben to help make this happen, and we'll hook up. We'll do it
for sure.
Hey, Tony, I'm going to see Social Distortion, bro. If you want to go, you're invited. See how that's done, Ben? Just like that.
Yep. I like it.
And anybody else out there, you want to show up and see the show, you come on down, man. The Fillmore is an awesome place. It's two clubs, the Fillmore and the Underground. They share the same parking lot.
Nice.
And I just saw, I don't know if I was on the show since I saw Trauma and Queensryche and Marty Friedman.
Yes. I think you were on just after you saw them, I want to say.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, that was so good. I really enjoy those shows there. We've got some of the best clubs. Hey, I'm just giving Charlotte a shout out, period. We have the best clubs and the best downtown vibe scene here. I don't ever, knock on wood, guys, see violence. I don't see problems. People are very, very polite. At least around here they are. And this is Charlotte. I mean, it's a crazy town, but our club scene is stellar right now.
Sure. What's up, Doug Strong?
Thoroughly enjoying it, man. And Richard, we're gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go see a show with Richard. That's gonna be cool.
I like that. He says definitely let's meet up at the restaurant next door before the show.
Yes. It's done. It's a done deal. I'm excited.
And yes, cousin Doug was in Charlotte last weekend. He said crappy weather last week.
Yeah.
He watched Monday's race from the airport. I'm just saying.
Hey, Simon Hosford's in the chat. It's good to see you, Simon. I love you, brother. Right there, man. Right there.
It's great to see Hoss.
Very
Recent birthday, Hoss. Happy belated birthday to Simon Hosford.
Happy birthday, Hoss. Love it, man. Love it. Well, what else is new, guys? What else is new?
I'm going to go about 10 more minutes here, folks.
Hey, I unboxed this gift that I received from Fairfield Guitars from Cody at Ronnie James Diode.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called The Gig. It's I guess you would call it I'll explain it. This is a little electric motor. It's very high speed.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Let me put it up here. Right there. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's approximately 5/8 of an inch wide, maybe 3/4 by an inch. That's the actual size of it. This is a variable speed potentiometer.
Okay.
So this allows this motor to go faster and slower. This little itty red button, isn't that thing cute as shit right there? Look at that. That's the actuator that starts it. And that right there is for a battery. So I'm putting it in the Frankie. Tony and my brother, sister Frankie's we got from Neil.
Mm-hmm.
I'm installing this. I was going to install it today. That was my project, but I ended up working all day. So now this is pushed back a couple of days. But when I install this, what this actually does, for those of you who don't know, Van Halen has a song called Pound Cake, and there's a opening in the song. During the song, he takes a Makita drill and he holds it up to the dual humbucker and he actuates it, and it makes a really gnarly. I mean, can you imagine it through a wet, dry, wet? It's freaking gnarly. Okay,
mm-hmm.
It's a signature tone. It's his thing. Okay, he created it. Well, what this does is it emulates that sound. It allows you to dial in that frequency very simply. This motor sits directly underneath what will be a DiMarzio Super Distortion, right under the pickup where the metal poles come down. This will sit crevice right underneath there. I'm going to have to do the slightest little modification to tuck this down just a little lower because my pickup height is perfect to my strings. And I don't have room for adjustment. So I have to do a slight modification. But that's fine. It's a Frankie. Okay. It's a Frankie.
That's the whole point. You can't make them look rough.
This is badass. And what this allows me to do is not only can I dial in a pound cake tone, I can turn the frequency up to a squeal, and I can dial it down to a growl.
Right.
And I've heard Lewis do a demo of it in his studio, and I cannot wait to put this into that Frankie. The Super Distortion with this little motor sitting underneath it is going to be seriously cool. I can't wait. I'm really excited.
That's badass.
I'm going to show you guys all about it, how it sounds, and do a demo for you. But that's my next little project.
Cool.
Other than waiting for Chris Locke to get me a neck and a body. I love his product is fantastic. If you guys want to build a guitar, get up with Chris Locke.
Yeah.
And let him hook you up.
It's one of the best.
Get you on the path to building a guitar that's going to be right. Because it's where you got to start. Other than that, hey, I love you guys, man. It's good to talk to you. I love working in this community and talking with you guys all the time on here. The love you guys have for each other and you show me love all the time. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Also, forgot to mention when we're talking about anniversary, I will be coming over to the Fruitcake Tony channel in the next few weeks.
Excellent.
For an artist that I'm not going to say who it is, folks, but when you'll see the show announced on the channel, you'll be like, oh, that's the one Ben's going to be on.
That's the one.
It's one of those obvious. Yep. So.
Yeah, it's blatantly obvious. You have to be there. It's not like you should be there. You have to be there.
Yeah, I'm like, honestly, I don't know who else in the YouTube community you would have on for that particular artist. I'm just saying, like I've pretty much been waving the flag like nobody else for said artist.
That is great. That is great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do have a Water Buffalo meeting coming up this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Because Saturdays are a little busy. I was trying to do the first Saturday, third Wednesday, so we're going to do this Wednesday and then week and a half later for the Saturday. I can't remember when the Saturday one is.
That is such a special group.
Oh, it's fun.
It's a special group, man. It really is. The guitar talent that's in that group is a little overwhelming, to be honest. You got to be there for a minute and to really get the whole vibe of everyone and where they come from and the knowledge they have. And
if you add up the years experience, like there's countries that aren't that old.
It's impressive. It really is. I love that hang. You guys rock. I love you all. You guys rock, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think we should probably wrap things up here. This has been a great show. Charles will definitely be back again. And
love you guys.
Yeah, I reached out to Charles about a week ago because I saw the stuff in the socials, and I'm like, let's discuss this. And Charles said, of course, brother, anytime. Perfect.
I'm calling it. Mick Mars will be back in Motley Crue by Halloween. I'm going for Halloween, Ben, even though I said Christmas before. Halloween.
I'm still doing a coin toss whether or not they complete the European tour. If they complete the European tour, then Mick may not be back this fast. But if they implode during the tour, then Mick will be back quicker.
Isn't it horrible when you're actually wishing for implosion of a band to put the band back like you want it? How messed up is that? That's Motley Crue, guys.
As my dad always said, if I see you running towards a brick wall, I'm going to grab you by the collar of the shirt.
Hopefully.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're grabbing them. Yeah. So we've got some demos coming out this week. The Vox Saturator pedal.
Cool.
So,
very cool.
Very cool. A lot of gain. A lot of gain.
Hey,
a lot of gain.
It's a saturator. What do you want?
Yeah. Oh, it saturates all right. There's an on button and a more button. So.
And a more button. Hey, I
Yep.
would like some more, please.
Yep. And it is. It's more. So I've been Ben. Charles has been Charles. Y'all been y'all. Special thanks to the mods for moderating tonight and those who contributed. Appreciate it a lot. As always, be back tomorrow night with Terry and Trev with Canucks with Guitars, where we'll do an update on Operation Explorer, as well as a recap of Cosmo Fest that I attended yesterday.
Very cool.
So, and we'll talk about the gear that Doug Strong may have actually bought this week. So,
awesome.
Have a great night, folks. Hold those doors open. Let Doug Strong and Eddie in traffic, so we won't be late. I'm just saying. Be good to each other. Happy tone chasing as always, and of course, don't let her. Don't let her.
Awesome.